is up guys, it's Simon from PianoPig.com, and in this video I'm going to give you a 6-part system to follow to help guide you into the world of improvisation. When trying to learn how to improvise, it can be so easy to get overwhelmed or just lost in a random maze of information. So my goal is to simplify that all into a step-by-step system which you can keep coming back to and use as a kind of roadmap to help develop your improvisational skills. This video is a kind of summary of one of my courses in the PianoPig Academy. So if you find it useful and you want to see more stuff like this, then definitely have a think about becoming a member and joining our awesome community. And as always, if you want the resource sheet and backing track to go along with this video, you can download that for free via the link in the description below. So let's do it. So the first step of this 6-step system is to learn a chord progression, which we're going to use as the vehicle to improvise over. We're going to play these chords with our left hand, freeing up our right hand to improvise with later on. This is how the chord progression sounds. So we're using rootless voicings for these chords, which means that the root note is not actually in the chord. The reason we do this is because 1, the bass in the backing track is already playing the root note, so we don't really want to double that up as it would sound a bit muddy. And 2, it gives us some spare fingers, which we can use to play much more colourful chord tones, which makes the chord sound so much richer. So just remember, the root note is not in the chord, and if you want a bit more information on this, I'll link a video up at the top which talks all about rootless voicings in more depth. So for our first chord, we have a G minor 9, for which we are playing this. We've got the flat 7, 9, minor 3, and 5. For our next chord, we have a C minor 9, for which we are playing this. We've got the minor 3, 5, flat 7, and 9. And then we play that G minor 9 again, followed by this chord, a D7 flat 9. We've got the 3, 5, 7 and flat 9 up at the top. So altogether we've got this. So step 1 is to master this chord progression. You want to be able to play this with your left hand and hardly have to think about it, which is done through repetition. So get the backing track on, or just a metronome, and play those chords over and over. The second step of this system is to start playing around with the G minor blues scale. This chord progression is in G minor, so the G blues scale is a great place to start. It's good because there are no what we call avoid notes, which means that any note from this scale will sound good over this progression. This is what the G minor blues scale looks like. So learn that, master it, make sure you know it like the back of your hand, and once you've done that, get the backing track on, get those chords going in the left hand, and start playing around with it. So just keep it simple with short little phrases. try and be creative and don't be scared to experiment. And avoid just running up and down the scale. So that's step 2, and you could spend months on step 2 if you wanted. There's an infinite amount of licks and runs you could come up with, so take your time on that one. And if you see me playing a lick you like the sound of, I encourage you to transcribe it and work it out yourself to have at your fingertips. So moving on to step 3. For you guys who have been playing around with the blues scale for a while and don't know where to go next, this step is going to be exactly what you need. We're going to be looking at chord tones. So chord tones are essentially just the notes within the chord. So for our G minor 9, these would be the chord tones. For our C minor 9, and for our D7 flat 9, so I'm going to quickly run through 3 different exercises for you to get familiar with these. The first exercise is to play through the progression, just playing the chord tones 1, 3, 5 and 7, each note on the beat. Here's what I mean, along to the backing track. The second exercise is to play the chord tones 3, 5, 7 and 9, and here's what that should look like. The third exercise is to improvise using nothing but chord tones, and still only playing one note per beat. And you might need to spend some time doing the first 2 exercises before doing this, but here's an example for you. So again, you could spend a long time on step 3, and I've actually got another video which talks about these exercises in much more depth. I'll put a link up at the top now. So when you've done that, it's time for step 4. What we're going to do in step 4 is combine the minor blues scale with the chord tones we just looked at. And this is going to give us a load more notes to play around with and get some more interesting sounds. I'm just going to rush through this. This video is more just showing you how to teach yourself rather than teaching you each individual stage. As I said at the beginning, if you want access to a fully structured course which covers this all in way more depth, then check out the PianoPig Academy. So I'm just going to give you an example playing around with the G minor blues scale, along with the chord tones of each chord as they come. And if you want even more to play around with, hang around for step 5. In this step, we're going to look at some chord scales and modes. For each chord, we're going to learn a scale which goes with that chord. So for our G minor 9, we're going to use the G Dorian scale, which looks like this. For our C minor 9, we're going to use the C Dorian scale, which looks like this. And for our D dominant 7 flat 9, we're going to use the D dominant diminished scale, which looks like this. So get to know these scales. Practice them over and over until they become very familiar. Just practice them up and down along with the chords in the left hand to help associate the scales to the chords. Once you've done that, you're ready to move on to step 6. So well done on making it to the final step. What we're going to do here is put everything together. So we're going to improvise using the scales for each chord, mixed in with the chord tones and the G minor blues scale. This is a lot to think about, so it's really important that you've spent a considerable amount of time on each step, getting familiar with what you're learning and not just rushing through things. Here is an example using everything we've talked about so far. So I know that was a very fast-paced lesson, but the idea is not for you to follow along, but rather use this as a guide and a pathway to help teach yourself how to develop your improvisational skills and get to that next level. If you want access to the lesson resource sheet and backing track, the link is in the description below and you can download that for free. And if you want me to teach you all this stuff step by step at a much slower pace, then head over to PianoPig.com and sign up today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you next time.